about ready to get started. So I just wanted to let you know this is part 2 of a series of 4 of the Millionaire Mind Teleshow with Harv Eker. This series was set up for everybody who bought 10 or more copies of Secrets of the Millionaire Mind and helped make it a publishing phenomenon. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind reached #1 on the New York Times bestseller list in its first week, along with 2 other national bestseller lists. And as we're coming up to 7 o'clock here, I'd like to ask everyone to join me in welcoming Harv Eker. Harv, I hope you're on the line. Welcome.
No, I'm not on the line yet.
Uh-oh. Well, I guess I should keep going.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? Thanks so much, Paul. I really appreciate it. Welcome to the Millionaire Mind Teleshow. This is Harv Eker. I will be your host for the next 2.5 minutes because I got to go. I was really hungry, so I'm going to go grab some dinner, and then just relax. We're going to keep this one real short. Only kidding. Anyways, I'll be your host for the next hour. I want to thank you for your time. It's very special for me that you're willing to spend your time with me and with our special guest and learning from us, hopefully. If this is your first time, this is a bit of a unique format because, this isn't just a normal interview. We actually only examine the minds of rich people here. So we don't interview any slugs and any poor people, any middle-class people, and any almost rich people, and any almost millionaires. And basically, we say millionaires, but they got to be a heck of a lot more than millionaires to get on this show. But the thing is that we're not just examining their strategies for financial success, but the thinking behind it. And they're kind of co-hosting with me because, we're going to kind of talk together with their single goal of helping you think like a rich person, wealthy people think. Because that's where it all starts, isn't it? All right, let's get going here. Our guest, this is actually one of the first people I thought of when I designed this program, and I hope he's on. That would be really nice. If he's not, then I'll just kind of take over, anyways. But he's got a 20-year track record of successful entrepreneurial ventures in tons and tons of different industries, ranging from telecommunications, information technology, event marketing, education, and broadcasting. He has founded and he built and sold more than a dozen different companies, including one named to Canada's fastest growing company list by Profit magazine. He's received a number of citations and awards for his entrepreneurial spirit and success, including the Young Entrepreneur of the Year award. Actually, he quit university and started his communications company at the age of 21, and then he built it into a multi-million-dollar enterprise, selling the company in the year 2000 and taking it public. In that same year, he also founded and built and sold an internet-based company that went on to revolutionize the entire radio industry. Having sold his companies for more than a couple of $1 million several times, Greg has gone on to co-found and sell a major event marketing company also. And then in 2001, he turned his attention to real estate and heavy duty in real estate. And his real estate firm now owns and manages a massive, massive, massive portfolio of residential and commercial real estate. So again, these are the pieces in place, but the result is the same. Greg Habstritt, how are you doing, Greg?
I'm great, Harv. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, Greg.
Excellent.
These are great accomplishments. Are you rich?
Yeah. Let me answer that 2 ways. First of all, if we're talking about cash money, then yeah, I guess I definitely meet that. But when I talk about being rich, I think it's more in the mind, and that's really why I'm excited to be on this call, because I really want to get across that message that being rich isn't so much about money in the bank. That follows having a rich mind. So
that is basically our premise here, and pretty well everyone on the call is going to understand that. Tell me, Greg, tell me a little bit about your background, where you came from, where you grew up, your family situation, brothers, sisters, parents, I think some jobs and businesses that you had. About a 3-minute version.
Sure. Well, I born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, in Canada, and my parents were middle class. My dad worked for the city a little more than 30 years, and really did come from the perspective of that generation where money was scarce, it was tough to get, you had to work hard for it, and
did he go through the Depression at all?
No, not that far back.
But
he he was he was the child of a Depression era, so he was taught that money is scarce by his parents, and that you have to work really hard for it. And man, once you've got it, you gotta protect it, and you gotta be really careful, and you can't be risky. And he always thought that the best way to go was, of course, the standard: go out, get a good job, and so. That's what I grew up in, and I can remember many times I went to school at the particular junior high school that I went to was close to some of the wealthier areas in the city, and I went there because it was a bilingual program, because I was in French bilingual program, and so I ended up going to school with a lot of kids that came from a lot of money, and they always had the latest labels and everything else, and I can remember for a few years just pining for the ability to go and spend $300 on a pair of jeans, and at the time it was such a foreign concept to me, and I felt almost second class. And I love my parents dearly, and certainly wouldn't trade them for anyone. But when I was young, I do remember a lot of that. That money is scarce and it doesn't grow on trees, and all debt is bad debt. No matter what you do, if you owe somebody money, that must be a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And some of the things that I learned young at the time, there's a little lake that's not too far from here, about 90 minutes away, and it's sort of a summer cottage area. And my dad actually had 2 cottages up there, and he ended up selling them both and lost a bunch of money on them. And used to tell me, real estate is really risky, and it's hard to make money, and tenants are bad, and you're always going to get a tenant that's going to cause you trouble, because that's what happened to him.
So a lot of the verbal conditioning that you had was around scarcity, risk aversion. You got to work hard, protect your money. It sounded very, very contained, basically. Not a very expansive type of mindset from your dad. What about your mom? What was she like?
It's interesting. My dad tells me stories of when they first got married and were fairly young, and just as they were having me and my brother, and they owned. My dad bought a duplex, a side-by-side duplex, in an area of Calgary, and his plan was that they were going to live in one side and rent out the other. And of course, that property back then, I think he told me he paid $42,000 for it at the time. And now, because I know the market so well, it would sell probably in the range of about $425,000, $450,000 today. Mm-hmm. So we talked about that story, and he shakes his head looking back. But it's interesting because he wanted to rent the one side out and live in the other. But at the time, my mother refused to live in a duplex because she refused to have people know that she lived in a half duplex. And at the time, she was making the choice of what other people thought versus what was the smart thing to do. And
how's that affected you in any way?
I think to be quite honest, Harv, I almost feel guilty even making it sound like my parents did anything wrong, because I love them so dearly, and they tried so hard to pass on good values to me. And overall, I think they did a great job.
Well, they're going to pass on what they passed on. They're going to pass on what they know. But the question is, what we're trying to get to is, see, everyone got a blueprint somehow. Me, you, and everybody on this call. The question is, what did we do with it, and how did we look at it, and in those files? And even though you have files that may be negative, what did you do with those files, and how did you look at it? So, your mom was definitely, one of the things was what other people thought. Did that affect you at all? Has that affected you at all? Would you say that that's one of the reasons that drove you to success?
I would say so, because I didn't like the feeling of wanting and being powerless to do anything about it. And when I was young, that's sort of how I felt. When I saw other people having the things, enjoying things that I couldn't have, or at the time I felt I couldn't have. So really what that caused me to do was start to look for ways that I could actually go and generate my own money. Partly because my mom and dad didn't have a lot of extra money, and partly they just...
You wanted those labels then, huh?
That's right.
So it basically sounded like a little bit like, there's still a little bit of the provingness. And again, this isn't bad. Just is what drives people, because one of the things we talk about the Millionaire Mind is that proving yourself, that whole arena of what other people think and proving yourself. And you even used the word earlier of I felt like a second-class citizen. Now, a person who doesn't care what other people think wouldn't feel like a second-class citizen because they wouldn't think that way. So it's very interesting because I had a lot of that proving going on myself, which we'll talk about in a minute. But literally, there's a lot of things that can drive people. But would you agree that you do need to be driven?
Oh, absolutely. I think without the motivation, it'll never happen because there's so many times when you run into adversity. If you don't have a big enough why underlying what you're doing, I mean, you'll take the first route off the highway. I mean, that's human nature. And back then, my why was I want to feel like I'm as good as the rest of the people.
Right. So in other words, what you were saying to our audience here is that, don't look at your situation and your motivation and whether it comes from fear or whether it comes from proving or whatever. You can still get rich either way. The only question is how happy will you be? So
that's right.
Especially along the way. So that's what we helped people learn is that don't discount what your rationale for your motivation. If you've got it, use it. Whatever it is for you, let it work for you. At the same time, do the work on yourself in order to make certain that you are eventually adding in that coming from joy and purpose.
Absolutely. And back then, the motivation for me, like I say, was really just to feel as good or equal or better and do what I wanted to do. And so what it motivated me to do at the time was actually start a couple of businesses while I was still in junior high. So the earliest one that I can recall that I would call a legitimate business was back in the early 80s when personal computers were just starting to come out. And what I came up with was this idea of a computer dating service for the junior high at Valentine's Day. So I talked to the school, got them to do it, and they basically what we did is handed out surveys to all the kids in the school, and everybody filled them out, and it was free to fill it out. And I took all those surveys and spent I slept about three hours the whole weekend between the Friday and the Monday. They filled them out on Friday, and then by Monday morning I had filled them up, put them all into this little computer program that I'd written. And basically what it did was went through and it took your survey and matched your answers against all the answers of all the opposite sex. And the idea was ultimately there was a list of the 10 top matches for you. So on Monday I came back, and this was a fundraising thing for the school. So we came back and we started selling the surveys. And of course everybody's curious who their matches are within the same school. And I split it 50-50 with the school. And I made several $100s at the time, and I just remember thinking, wow, this is unbelievable. You can just print money, make money out of magic. And that's really what whet my appetite for business. And so, it started young. And
so that's a good thing that, hold on, you got to catch the phrases here because that's important. When you say, wow, like this is really simple, that this is really easy, you can make money like magic. So actually, looks like you went the opposite route of your dad, who constantly said, making money is hard. Making money is scarce. Now, if you would have bought into that, you would have never tried anything. But you went your own route. How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I've got one older brother and no sisters.
All right, so you're the second born.
That's right.
Oh, how perfect is this, Greg? Huh? You didn't know I was going to nail you on that, huh? Second born, you're the rebel. Of course, Daddy says keep it safe and money's scarce and money's hard. And then Greg goes in and say, forget that. Money's going to be the opposite of what you say, Dad. It's going to be easy.
And interestingly enough, that's exactly what happened. Is that I would say that I'd venture to say that I'm probably as diametrically opposite to my father in almost every way that you can get. And there's a few exceptions to that. And I would consider myself very sensitive and emotional and generous like he is. But when it comes to business and managing money, we are diametric opposites.
Right.
And,
well, one thing is that you learned what you didn't want to see, right? You didn't want it for yourself.
Right.
And being the second. Now, by the way, how's your brother doing?
What's interesting is he's I would say he's as entrepreneurial as I am. I mean, he's been doing the same thing a little bit longer, and his goal isn't to build it into a massive program or company like what I've done, but I would say he comes from similar similar ilk in that he's very entrepreneurial. He originally became a paramedic, and he wanted to be a doctor, and he was working so hard at an overnight job at one of the grocery stores that he slept into 3 of his finals and got kicked out of medical school. So he decided to become so he became a paramedic instead, and ultimately started a school, and he now teaches students the mandatory programs to become a paramedic in Alberta, and competes with the big technology Institute of Technologies here. It's an interesting story, but
yeah, for sure. So,
again, not the kind of story you'd expect from my parents.
Well, here's the thing. You're going to either go exactly the same or pretty well the opposite, and thank goodness you went the opposite. And again, you go back into looking at what you were conditioned for, what you were told. You're either going to buy into that or you're going to buy into the other way. And so everyone still has that right now. As long as, again, you've disassociated, guys, from knowing that the stuff that came inside you, that was installed in you, the blueprint, basically, the information you got from your parents and everybody else, is just their information. And then you got to keep on reminding yourself, this is their information, their way of being, what they got from their parents probably, and the way it was at that point in time for them. It has nothing to do with you, really, other than the fact, let me ask you guys a question. What would happen if I came over to your house and it wasn't even Halloween, but I dressed you in some type of witch's costume? Well, you kind of have a laugh for the night. You go out, maybe you knock on some doors, even if it's not Halloween. But what about the next day? Would you continue to wear the costume? Well, how about the next day? What about the day after that? No, you say, Harv, you put it on for one night, you gave it to me. I choose whether I wear the costume or not. I don't think it's appropriate all the time. And yet, when it comes to the way we think, the stuff that was installed in our mind, we kind of just bought it, hook, line, and sinker, go, this is the way life is, And literally, all it takes is a single 1 nanosecond switch of the mind that says, it's not like that at all. Like for you, you went from you have to work hard, you have to protect your money. Not that you don't, but money is very scarce, it was very hard, and you went and you had one experience, and you said, geez, that was all crap, and money's really easy. Now, let me ask you a question. With that experience, money's really easy, how has that, would you say that's a thought of yours, that's part of your blueprint, that you believe that, or you don't believe that?
Oh, I would say absolutely. Now, through the experience that I've had, I would say that making money is very easy. In fact, it's one of the easiest parts of it.
So tell me, what do you say to all the people out there who are struggling to, even make a living, let alone get their first 100 or 200,000 or $500,000 or $1 million? We're multi-millionaires. So what do you say to someone who's going, what do you mean money is easy? I struggle like crazy.
Well, I know
what makes it easy?
It's hard to see the opportunities out there when you haven't tuned into being able to see them. But I guess the simple answer I would say is get over it. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there in the world just waiting. And one of the lessons that I learned fairly young was that there's 3 kind of, I guess I would say, golden rules that I live my life by. And we'll talk about them, a few of the other ones later. But the first one is that the world will deliver to you the amount of value you bring to it. And it's really that simple. That's why people say, well, I don't have time to get rich, or I don't have time to go find opportunities. It's not that you don't have time. Everybody's given the same 24 hours. It's just that you choose your priorities in a different way. And I think it's just a simple way to look at the world. But the example I give is that if I were to take the most loved person in your life right now, the person that you love and cherish the most, and I were to put them and hang them over a cliff, right here behind my house here, and I were to hang them off a cliff and called you and told you that if within 24 hours you didn't come to get them, that they would fall and die, would you come and would you do everything you possibly could to save them? And of course the answer is yes. So in other words, you have the choice to do whatever you want if it's important enough.
Yeah, that's a good point. In one of our, I believe most people on the phone have taken Enlightened Warrior training. We talked about an example very similar to that, and that leads to the commitment. It leads to the whatever it takes. Now, a lot of people's whatever it takes isn't very whatever. It's like, well, whatever when I have time, and whatever if I got to stay around the city, and whatever I got my kids that I gotta. It's not a whatever. It's whatever's convenient. Okay, but to certain levels. So literally, as you say, like that, and what we say there is the intensity. What kind of intensity would we work with? What kind of speed would you run with? What kind of what kind of team would you put together right away? Again, same thing. If you had to become a millionaire in a year, or you get shot, what would you do? Well, hey, guess what? I bet my money that everybody on this line would become a millionaire in 1 year. I'll say it again, in 1 year, if your life depended on it. But the point is that most people's lives don't depend on it according to them. Now, I'll tell you what. For me, my life depended on it because it was so important to me. The commitment was so there for whatever reason it was. And for me, it was a proving thing, too, for a long time because I wanted to prove that to my parents that I wasn't going to be a bum. You see, when I left school after the first year of college, I remember sitting there on a Friday night dinner with my parents and my sister and everything. And I came and I said, hey, I have an announcement. And they said, well, what is it? I said, I'm going to take a year off. And it was like, I was waiting for them to go, oh, Ray, really? Where are you going? Yeah. How naive and stupid was I, right? It's like they looked at me like death warmed over and they said, what? I said, yeah, I finished my first year of college. I'm going to take a year off, do some traveling, see the world a little bit. I got my whole lifetime to work. You know the story. And I'm still taking a year off.
I went through that, too, the same way, Harv. When I mean, you can imagine my dad is an accountant. And he had the same job for over 30 years, and I mean he did well with it and ended up with a great pension, but we all know those stories aren't around anymore. I mean that doesn't happen anymore. You can't go and get a job today for 30 years and expect that you're going to get taken care of. So you can imagine the look in his eye when over the dinner table that night after I decided I was going to leave I was in the university for 3 years, only a year away from having a commerce degree. I looked at him and said, Dad, I got something exciting to tell you. I've decided to leave university. And, I mean, he literally dropped his fork, and you can imagine the look on his face. Because it went against everything that he had ever been programmed.
Oh, totally. My parents thought I was going to be... They said, you are a bum. You are always going to be a bum. You'll never make a living. And don't think we're going to support you. Don't come running back to this house. You're going to be nothing but a bum. You'll see. And they didn't never let off. I mean, I can't tell you. It wasn't like a 1 minute thing. They were screaming at me the entire night. It was like, I have to get out of there. And so, it ingrained in me so deeply that I said, I'll show you. I'll show you. I'll show you. I'm not going to be a bum. And I just... not only did I want to get rich, I wanted to get rich fast, quickly. Yeah. And then one time I journaled about that. I go, what's the hurry? Because, it wasn't very elegant. I was trying so hard, like a chicken with my head cut off, and yet I was trying everything, which is not a good move. You've got to, here's one thing for everybody, you've got to focus. You've got to learn something, focus on it, and build it, okay? But I didn't do that. I had like 4 or 5 businesses at once. Even when I started a business, I'd add. By then, the first business was screwy. So, focus is critical. But literally, I wanted to make it fast. And one day I journaled about this in a class with somebody. In fact, who I was working with? I was working with Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah. We were journaling about some of our stuff going on. And I wrote down, Harv, why do you have to make it so fast? What's all the tension about? And then I wrote it down. I started tearing. I wrote down, because I've got to make it before they die. Wow. And I remember just like, oh my God, where did that come from? Yeah, that's pretty powerful. Totally just out of proving that I'm not a bum, and I'm going to show you that I can be a success so you can be proud of me. And the moment I wrote that down, I looked at it and went, this is not a good way to live. If I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it because of what I want and what I need in my life. And if they enjoy that, and if they can be proud of me, that's great. But I've got to, get the stress out here, because a lot of people, they're in total stress, and it's like it eats them up from the inside. And so, you've got to do whatever it takes, but you can do it with a smile, and you don't have to prove anything to anyone, including yourself, but just take the actions and do what you need to do. Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to a couple of other things here. So tell me, what would you say was the biggest turning point in your life thinking-wise again?
Wow, that's a good question. I think for me it was a little bit more of a progression, going through school, making some of the, starting that first business and realizing, wow, this is great, but still at the time being resistant to the fact that I could just go out and make money and print money, and because of all the programming that I had at home. But it was like there was this entrepreneurial spirit in me that was stronger than the programming. And I think I'm fortunate because I don't think that a lot of people, don't end up with that kind of an entrepreneurial strength in them. And the thing I have to say about it that's ironic is that had my dad not been the way he was and been protective of capital and very safe those many years, he ended up providing the financing capital for one of the big businesses that I ended up building and selling. And if it weren't for that, I mean, if he was out there and kind of a gambler investor and didn't watch his money and didn't have the money, I certainly wouldn't be where I am now.
Well, I don't know about that. You'd have a $420,000 house instead of a $42,000 house type of thing, right?
Yeah, well, that might be true.
Yeah, you got to have that balance going. So let me ask you this then. What specific kinds, again, what do you think makes you different than most other people who are not doing as well financially? What kind of thoughts run through your head that you believe make you a financial success? Like the kind of thoughts you have on a daily basis as things are in front of you. What are those thoughts? Give us a couple of thoughts that consistently run through your head as during the day as you are doing your business that you believe, say, this is why I'm successful because I think this way. What is it?
Yeah. Well, like I was saying before, there's three things. I don't even have to think about it, Harv, because there's three things that are constantly in my mind as it relates to, wealth and growth and having a spectacular life. And number one is accountability. I would say that if I had to boil down my success to one thing that I could tell people that's the secret, I would say that it's accountability, and that means taking responsibility for anything good or bad that happens in my life, because I'm a very strong believer that you make your own luck, and that luck is the intersection of opportunity and preparedness. And one of the things that I hear in people's language all the time, and it absolutely drives me crazy, is when something happens and they're either unwilling or unable to accept accountability for it, even though they should be. And that just drives me absolutely
constantly
crazy.
Looking at the outer world versus what their arena is. Guys, remember this. We talk about accountability, of course, in a lot of our programming and in a book even. And so it's you want to remind yourself 1,000 times. If you could do it every single day about these principles, it would be helpful for sure. But realize again, every moment, not every day, every moment of every day, you are creating that moment. You're creating it by A, what you put out to the world, and B, how you respond to what the world gives back to you. So remember this. One is what you put out to the world is what the kind of energy you're putting out is the kind of energy you're going to get back. And number two, the way you respond to any energy that's coming your way will determine that energy that goes out again. So it's this cycle. And again, those of you who've done our wizard training, you know that it's all about the energy you're putting out into the world. And you have different kinds of energy that you're putting out. But a lot of it has to do with your thoughts, your feeling energy, and your action energy. So three energies again: thought energy, feeling energy, action energies. Those are three things that you have complete control of. And these are like your soldiers going out into the universe, into the quantum wave, and bringing back either good stuff or crappy stuff. And every moment, it takes a while for it to come sometimes, but every moment you are doing any thinking, feeling, or actions, you are putting energy into the universe, and I promise you that will be reflected back to you. Does that make any sense at all?
Well, Harv, I totally agree with you. And like I say, these aren't things that I have written down somewhere that I go to once a month when I'm reviewing goals, or even when I'm looking at my daily goal list and to-dos. I don't look at it and say, oh, geez, yeah, what today do I need to be accountable for, or what happened yesterday that I need to think about? It just, for me, it's just second nature now. I mean, before words come out of my mouth in terms of dealing with an issue or a problem or something gone wrong, the first thought through my head is, what part did I play in this, and what can I do about it? I mean, that's literally what goes through my head
right.
when I'm dealing with a problem.
You got a second one, right?
Yeah, so that the accountability, I would say, above all else, is probably the first thing that has led me here so far. The second thing would be the concept of focus. I'm very, very focused on when I'm doing something, I'm focused on it. When I'm learning something, I'm very focused on it. And focus is, and you alluded to it earlier, focus is tremendously important. And that kind of this is all common sense, I guess. It's not rocket science, but for me, when I finally realized that trying to run 15 businesses all at the same time doesn't work, I finally figured out, you know what, I got to pick one pony, train it well, and it'll win some races. And that's really that's the second part of why
that is a huge concept, because everybody needs to hear this again. Focus, focus, focus. Remember, real estate's location, location, location. With success in everything, is focus, focus, focus. Can you imagine Tiger Woods being where he is today if he spent a tenth of his time golfing, a tenth of his time bowling, a tenth of his time playing football? No. Okay, the guy played golf every living breath. Okay, that's why he's that good, all right? He focused. Now, I got to tell quickly the story about what happened for me. I was living in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I was in a business, a small business. I was in the jewelry business, actually, and selling certain lines of jewelry to retail stores. So I was doing okay. I wasn't doing any great shakes. I was still broke at the time, basically. I was making maybe $700-800 a week, not that much. And a guy comes up to me, he says, hey, you know what, you're saying you're going around to these stores and everything. En route, why don't you take these hats? Because these hats have nothing to do, they won't conflict with your jewelry. You're already on the road. Take these hats, they're kind of like really cool novelty hats, and sell them to the variety stores, the gift shops, and stuff like that. Take on this line. You'll make yourself double the money. I said, you know what? 2 + 2 = 4. You're right. I'll do it. I took on the hats. Then about a week later, another guy came up to me. He had different kinds of T-shirts, a new T-shirt lines. They were kind of competed with Hanes. They were kind of an upscale type of thing. He says, well, you're on the road already. Take that. Yeah, I told him I got hats, I got jewelry. He says, take these with you. You go by this store, you go, oh, yeah. So I took those with it. And then finally, I ended up with something called gravity guidance boots, Greg, the ones that American Gigolo, remember the guy, Richard Gere, upside down. And thank God that one led me to my fitness business in the end. But I took that on. And you know what? I had gone from, in literally a month, from one line, making $700-800 a week, to 4 lines, losing $200 a week.
Yeah.
With no time, I wasn't eating at all. I looked completely white, even though I lived in Florida. From the standpoint of my I had no tan. I mean, I was just blank as a ghost, and I'm going, what happened here?
Well,
I don't get it. I should have been earning 4 times the amount of money, and I'm losing money now. And
you're only losing $20 on each deal, but you'll make it up in the volume. Right?
That's right. Yeah. So exactly the point we want to stress to everybody here. Greg and I are telling you about probably could be the most important point you've ever got, and that is focus, focus, focus. Because what I did, my thinking, my broke thinking was saying, security. If this other one doesn't work out that well, at least I've got this other thing in my back pocket that I can go to. You know what I'm saying? And I think so many people have that going on. They're going like, well, here's my primary thing, but that's really what I'm going for. But if it doesn't work out, I still want to have this. I have this in my back pocket and this in my side pocket, and I'm doing a little bit of this so I can have this just in case it doesn't work out. So there's one thing about the security. And the other thing I have to mention, and I've mentioned it before, I'm going to remind you, is this thing around multiple streams of income. Yes, do I believe in multiple streams of income? Abso-frickin-lutely. No question about that. But one at a time, my friends.
Yeah.
Most people say multiple streams of income. They get into real estate, they get into this, they get into that, they get into this, they get into this. They write a book, and what are they doing? Nothing. How much money are they making? Nothing. You got one arena, okay, like you said. Take your one pony, train it well, and then systemize it so it can run on its own, and then you have the right to move to the next arena. Now, even in real estate, it's something whereby, real estate is a great thing for people who have a solid situation here to move into, either as a completely new arena and get into different passes for real estate, or as a part-time thing. We're not saying don't do part-time things, but if you've got situations where you have your hands in 3 or 4 or 5 pots and you're not making money, that's why. That's why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Pick one pony and train it.
And I think the key is you pick a pony, you train it, and you master it. Then, once you've got it mastered, and you're not having to constantly learn, then you can start to expand your horizon a little bit. And so I think there's a little bit of balance that needs, focus is so important, especially in the startup and when you're growing something. But at the same time, you also can't be too focused that you're in tunnel vision.
We call it focused but open.
Well, back in the early 1900s, if you were the most focused buggy whip manufacturer that ever existed, you made a lot of money for a while. But if you were too focused and you didn't realize that some guy named Henry was about to put you out of business, it wouldn't have been long before that focus cost you some money.
Definitely keeping your eyes open.
That's
but
right.
Don't again. A lot of people have this problem. They either take on other things for security, or they take them on for additional passive income streams or income streams. And if you're not doing well on your first one, why would you expect to do well on your second one?
That's
so
right.
Get the first one going well. And if you're not doing good on the first one or the second one, get rid of them both and find a vehicle that works for you.
I have yet to meet somebody who got rich because they went out and got a second and third job. It's just...
Or even a second or third business.
Things.
Usually people who get rich, they are rich through one arena primarily, and then they diversify that situation.
That's right.
Let me ask you this then. Did we get to the third one? Let's go to the third one here because I really like these. Accountability, focus, and what was the third one?
The third one is that I am probably, of anybody that I know, I probably spend more money and time on education than, I look back and there's been years where I've spent over $100,000 personally on education, going to seminars, ordering courses, all the travel involved and everything.
Really? Let me give you a website that you want to be doing your next order.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
It's true, Harv. Education is the thing that is so important to me, and that's why. That's one of the reasons that I've become an educator. Is that in the last few years, I do a lot of training now and educating other people. Partly because I love it. It's great to see the light on. But I'll be honest with you, the real reason that I started doing it was because if you really want to learn something, man, go out and teach somebody else. And as soon as you've got that responsibility on your shoulders, you just naturally have to go out and learn it inside and out. So that's why I started teaching a few years ago, and it turns out that I love it, and the response, has been great. So I'm building that as a business, and that's the great thing is it just, it comes around, goes around. I started teaching because I wanted to learn more, and because my teaching has taken off, it's just another one of, it's an income stream for me now, and I absolutely love it. I get off on it. So to me, I couldn't have done that had I not been so committed to constant learning.
And one of the things you said there, you said also is that you love it. You do what you love to do.
Absolutely.
And again, people, I'm gonna nail you again, guys. Listen closely. Remember, in life directions for a lot of you, if you've taken it, great. If you haven't, make sure you do. Means to an end thinking is a big problem, because we're creatures of habit. I'm not saying that sometimes you don't have to do what you got to do to get somewhere else. So of course that's the way it is. But what happens is we get into a rut. We get into a situation thinking we're not going to ever get into a situation or a rut here. We're just going to make a living for a little while until we can sort things out or until we pay off this or. And what happens? Well, 15 years later, you tell me what happens. Nothing. Yeah. Right? And so that's what we call means to an end thinking, doing something you don't like in order to get to something you do like. And again, if it's a short time and it's a short time, it's a committed time, fine. But if it's just like, has no time limits, there's no commitments, there's no accountability on that, it's a big, big challenge, because a lot of times people, they know what they love to do, and they know what really they're here for, but they don't have the guts to get into it or stick to it. And again, there's a lot of ways to do everything. So if the vehicle can change, but you should really stick with who you are from the standpoint of your mission. Again, I am a teacher. Greg, you are a teacher. Some people are healers. Some people are adventurers. Whatever it is for you, be that and choose the vehicle. The vehicles can change all the time. So literally do what you love. And I'd say if you're not doing what you love, create the reality where you can cover yourself on a financial level in some way, shape, or form. Even if you're not at $1 million a year, earn a living, but do it in what you love and build that so that in the end you're making your fortune in the arena in which you love.
And if you keep doing the stuff you love, the money follows you. It finds you. I mean, that's just the way it works, and that's how it's been with my education companies. And I just, like I say, I'm so committed to education, and I hear people, going back to this whole problem of, geez, I don't have enough time. I got a full-time job. I heard on the last call last week when you talked to one of my, just a very, very close friend of mine, Keith Cunningham. And one of the things that one of the questions was asked was, well, geez, I've got this job. I got a 2-hour commute each way. How on earth am I ever going to be able to do anything? And when I hear that, again, this stuff just automatically clicks in for me. I don't have to stop and think about it. The first thought I had when I heard that was, you've got a 2-hour commute? You are so lucky. And the reason that I say that is because if I could force myself every day for 2 hours to spend time listening and focusing on education that I play in my car, I probably would have twice as much money today as that I do. And that's because if you get into my car, Harv, in Calgary here, you'll find I've got a whole library of CDs, and I'm constantly listening and educating myself in the car. I mean, I can't tell you the names of most of the radio stations in Calgary because I don't listen to that crap. I listen to stuff that's building my brain, feeding my knowledge, and I subscribe to a whole bunch of different educational newsletters that come on audio. So
yeah, I agree 100%. And a lot of people on the call, most of them are into education too. It's just,
absolutely,
guys, listen up. You got to take it to another level, a whole other level. When I sold my company, my fitness company, one of the reasons I'm able to do what I do right now is because, did you know that I took a 1.5 years off before moving down to San Diego? And what do you think I did for a 1.5 years? You won't believe it. For a 1.5 years, I walked and listened to tapes from every master in every personal development, business, money arena that had anything. And I had a little dictaphone with me. This is not like 1 day or 2 days. I said 18 months, a full 1.5 years. I had a little dictaphone, and I kind of recorded with my own voice the key elements that I thought were really critical and the key sayings that I want to remember and things like that. Then what I did, believe it or not, is I actually had someone transcribe all the tapes and then put them into a certain order for reference. To this day, and I don't know exactly where they are and what storage area, I have 2 massive file boxes of maybe, I don't know, 2,000-3,000 pages of every really excellent piece of information and motivation and whatever that's really ever been put out there. And if I could find that today, it would be worth a freaking fortune, I'm sure. But it was worth a fortune in my mind, I guess, because before that, again, I did okay. But remember, I started losing my money. And after that, things began to change. So you're on the right track. Every single time you're with Peak Potentials, with us, with anybody else, if you're learning from them, you are doing the right thing. You invest in 2 things. You invest in things that can go up in value, hopefully, assets, and you invest in education. That's financial. They will both come back to you 1,000-fold over. And Greg and I aren't just saying this because we're educators. But why do you think we're educators? Because it works for us. Hello?
Absolutely. I mean, Harv, anybody that comes to my office, I'll take you upstairs. I own an office building in Calgary, and I'll take you to my office upstairs. I've got a library, and it's jam-packed. One of the walls is lined with bookcases, and literally there are hundreds and hundreds of books and courses and CD sets and tape sets and games you name it. I mean, and I credit, like I say, that's one of the three things that I absolutely think of every day, and the reasons why I think I am where I am. And
well, thank you. Those are
critical.
three excellent ones. And let me also say to everyone here, just on that note, if you're not a Quantum Leap member, sign up for Quantum Leap. I mean, just get committed. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I could care less really from the standpoint of financial, but it's very obvious that people who do Quantum Leap, everyone I've ever met, they've transformed themselves, their business, their lives, their money, everything transforms in literally 3 years. And if you're not willing to invest in yourself, that's okay, but don't expect much different. Okay, it's not going to make a big difference. So let's go to the next question here, because it's really important. You know, we've all had obstacles in our lives, and we all have obstacles in our lives. I want you to give me an example of how you handle obstacles that come your way, and what's your thought process when a challenge comes to you? What's your thought? What something happens, it didn't go well? What's your thought process?
Well, it depends on how serious the issue is. If it's something that, for example, in some of my businesses, I've had a situation where I had a business partner and thought that the business, you know, wouldn't survive if it wasn't for both of us being there. And, you know, one day the business partner comes in and sits down and says, you know what, I've been thinking about it and I'm going to be leaving. And, you know, the feeling of your heart just sinking and jaw dropping to the ground. And then I can remember that happened to me one time, and I walked out into the park and sat there and thought about it. And for about 5 or 10 minutes, I felt like the world had just came crashing down on me. But what I started doing was saying to myself, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen? And that is a really powerful question to start asking yourself, because what you do is you ask yourself, okay, well, what's the worst that could happen? Okay, well, my partner left. Okay, well, then what? Well, if he leaves, man, I'm not going to have any salespeople, and I'm going to have to do it myself. I'm already working too hard. Okay, well, then what? Well, I don't know. Either I have to shrink the company down or maybe try to hire a salesperson. Okay, then what? Well, the sales go down, and, geez, maybe this thing isn't profitable anymore. And you just keep asking that iteration of, okay, well, then what? And then what? And then what? And ultimately, what it gets you to is realizing that it's not the end of the world. And so for major things like that, I find that's a really excellent tool to use, because what you'll realize is eventually you're not going to die from it. You know, that's the end, you know, is okay, well, I have to shut my business down. Then what am I going to do? Well, I'll go out, and if I have to, I'll start another business, or I'll find another partner and get some joint venture capital and start another thing. And, okay, well, then what will happen? Well, that business, geez, maybe it'll grow faster. And if I just borrow the money, I won't have any partners to have this happen again. Well, then what will happen? Well, man, then I can build this business up, maybe make it super successful and end up selling it. And that's the irony of that story, is that's exactly what happened with that business that I grew. And I did have a partner in it, and they left, and I thought it was the end of the world. And it turned out to be the best thing, because, you know, the truth is I bought their shares back from them for about 1/25th or 1/30th of what I ended up selling them for 2 years later when the company went public. So
excellent. I like that. I think that's a great point for everybody. Again, write these things down. Again, in Warrior, we talked a little bit about it. What's the worst that can happen? In other words, expect the best, accept the worst, and go for it.
That's
so
right.
Literally, but I like the thing that you're adding to this right now that's very important is to what I call it counting it down, or bringing it down, which is bring it down to its root essence. Because, you know, when we're all upset and everything, it's all fear-based, right?
Right.
So what's the worst that can happen is a phrase that allows you to get to the bottom line fear, and it starts to decompress that energy that you've got. Oh my God, you know what? This is going to be terrible. And then you go, okay, well, what's the worst that can happen? Well, you know, like you said, this or that can happen. Well, then what do I do? And what it does is that those questions move you eventually to action.
That's right.
So you start off with your fear, which is a really, really negative energy, and then by the end of that questioning, what's the worst that can happen, and then what, 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 eventually, especially if you've trained with us at all, you're gonna know how to bounce back. You're gonna come to an action. And I think it's very, very, very important to do that. Thanks for that, Greg. I really appreciate you bringing that up. All right, let me ask you this question. What would you say is your most positive trait, would you say? Your most positive characteristic or trait, the one that you think brings you the greatest success?
Well, that's another good question. Man, these are hard questions, Harv. I didn't think I was going to have to do too much thinking on this.
Well, don't. Just kind of spit it out. What
I would say the answer that jumps to my mind is probably vision, in that I feel like I've got a talent for being able to identify underserved or untapped opportunities in the market. And it goes back to my constant thinking about things from a perspective of what value do I bring to the marketplace. And it's like I said before, the difference between the guy when I walk into a fast food store and order a burger, the difference between that person and the person who, I pay $500 to get legal advice from, or the difference between me, everybody's got the same amount of time. It's only a matter of what value they're bringing. And, that's the secret to me, is bringing added value so that the market will give you back what you bring to it.
Yeah,
just
one of the things
like you say, bringing energy
yes.
to the world, and it gives back. And I think my ability has been to identify opportunities and then create value in a way that allows me to put money in my pocket. That's, the people will pay me for the value I create.
Right. I think, plus, I know what you do, and I know that you're a huge real estate mogul and basically have built this company to a massive success. And now, you teach other people how to do it step by step, which is, awesome of you to do that, because, you're one of the purest and simplest teachers of this that I've ever met, because, you do it, and you do it every day, and that's how we know each other, isn't it? That I try to be in one of the lineups to be one of your investors and try to get my money in with you, and you're going, well, okay, well, we have too many here, this one, maybe this one, maybe this one, and I've been trying for a while, but thanks God we've been looking for. We're looking at doing it. So literally, that's probably a key element, that you are good at looking for underdeveloped or untapped markets and bring value, because that's one of the things you always say to me. It's because guys, you don't know this, but I use Greg as my real estate consultant, and so everywhere I'm looking at buying, whether it's Florida or Texas or Hawaii or Calgary or Vancouver, I always call Greg and go, Greg, what do you think about this? And here's his famous words: Harv, you're buying retail. I'm going, okay, well, thanks a lot. And then, so it's always like, don't buy retail. Yes, can it go up? Yeah, but if you can buy wholesale and sell it for more than, and then that goes up, you're going to multiply your money by 20 times. But so Greg's learned some amazing systems in finding wholesale situations in retail markets, and I think that's really what you're talking about, is bringing value to that arena. I think that's a hot thing. Let me ask you this then: is money important to you? And if so, why? Is it the money? Is it the sex? What's important to you? Did I say the sex or the success? I did say the sex, didn't I?
Freudian slip.
Yes, I guess so. Anyway.
Is money important? Absolutely. And anybody that says it's not, I can't help them. I mean, let's face it. Money is important, because that is, whether you like it or you hate it, the fact remains that money is the scorecard that the world uses, and it's the way that. To me, it's not the money. I don't get excited about looking at a bank account with 6 or 7 zeros, or, looking at I'm going to do this deal and make all this money. It's not the money that goes through my head. It's the things that I can do with the money. That's what it's all about for me. I mean, money to me certainly doesn't buy happiness, but what it does is it removes a lot of the barriers between you and the ability for you to reach happiness. That's the way that I look at it. And so, I mean,
basically,
I'm not saying you have to have money to be happy, but, let's face it, it sure makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So in talking about that, let me ask you this. What would you say, again, let's just kind of quiet it down here for a minute. it's the end of your life. You've had a great life. You're kind of sitting on your porch and you're in your rocking chair and you know you don't have a lot of time left and you're reflecting back on your life and you're saying, if I could just give one secret of financial success to pass along to the world, just one, not two, not five, just one thing that really, really worked for me, what would that be? What would I tell my son or my daughter about financial success?
Well, it's good to kind of cheat because I've already told everybody a lot of really good things already, so I don't have to, But at the end, I think what I would say is that, and we talked about this earlier, is that, you know what, your life doesn't depend on money. Your life doesn't depend on making money or becoming a millionaire. You're not going to die if you don't become a millionaire. But living a spectacular life does. And I think that's critically important. That's what I intend to pass on to my children, is that money is not what makes you happy, but it certainly takes away the obstacles. And it's critical to understand that if it's not an important part of your life, money, you will either act like a magnet or you will repel it. And
so basically what you're saying is that money is important. Consider it important. It's not necessarily the most important thing, but it is an important element, and don't dissuade from it.
Right.
Don't negate it in any way. A lot of people, even after they've done the Millionaire Mind, they still have a tinge of resentment towards money. Or they go, it's such a struggle. I wish we didn't even have to deal with this stuff. Don't say that, or you won't be dealing with this stuff, all right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
No, money is it's one of those things. It's an idea, and it's not good, it's not bad. It'll do for you what you want it to do. But to me, understanding and valuing money is important because, and then people say, well, geez, I don't make a lot of money, I have nothing in the bank, but I'm very happy. And I'm not saying that you can't be. What I am saying is that it's possible you could achieve a higher level of happiness. For example, if having a bunch of money for yourself isn't what gets you off, but you're much more, charitable and helping other people is really what turns you on, well, the more money you have, the more money you can give away and the more lives you can change. So, that's an example of how I'm not saying that amassing all this money and having it in the bank like a hermit is a good thing. What I'm saying is money is a conduit to create more happy energy in the universe.
And you know what? I agree with that, and thank you for that. And here's the thing, that I want everybody, I'm going to reiterate something I've talked to you about before many, many times, and that is the power of your intention, okay? So what I want you to do is I want you to look at, and I'm going to ask you to write this down for a moment. I want you to write down what was a really, really successful situation for you in your life, a successful event, a successful time, or whatever. It's something you did that was extremely successful. And then what was, like, banking on that? Say this is a time I did this, so now I can do better because I'm smarter and I'm have more experience, and I'm a little wiser. So if you, like, one of the things, for example, that I use is, okay, I was able to make $1 million in 2.5 years, going from broke. Okay. Well, the next $1 million, I think in about 2.5 years, I made about $4 or $5 million in that same amount of time. So then I looked at that and I said, you know what? If I can in 3 years make 4 or 5, then what should my next 3 years look like? Well, I said I should be able to make 10 or 15 or 20 million, don't you think? It just made logical sense. So I said, I made that my intention. Well, then I should be making, $15 million in the next 3 years. And so literally what I want people to do is I want you to bank off a success that you've had, financially or otherwise, and say, if I could do that, then what's my next level here? And I'm going to ask you to not just play the money game to win, but play it to win extreme, okay, extreme win. So take something that's semi-realistic for you and that you've done fairly well. Let's say, for example, your best year ever, you made $80,000 a year. I'm going to challenge you right now to say, you know what, I'm going to set myself up here, but in 2006, my goal is to double that at least, is to make it $200,000 from January 1, 2006 to December 31st. And I guarantee that if you really sit down and create that intention for yourself based on some, if you say, well, I did 80,000, I should do 80 million next year. Come on, hey, okay, maybe so, maybe yes, I don't know, but do something that you think is your next level that has some proof and reality for you that it's, you've gone to this level before, or you could go to a level fairly quickly. And remember, you are now at a new level. So one of the things that I always think about, because, Harv gets his unconfident moments, once in a while. Sure, everybody does, right? But when I think about that, and I think, oh my God, what's my next move here, especially from the financial level? I have lots of different moves. From financial level, well, I've got to have an extreme amount, set up for next year. Why? Because again, if you shoot for the stars, you're at least going to hit the moon. And so what Greg's talking about here is, yeah, money is important. And what I'm adding to that is, your intention for a lot of money is absolutely critical based on your past situation and what the best you've done is, even if it was as a kid, even if it wasn't about money, but it was about something else. Everybody's had successes in their life. Does that make any sense at all, Greg?
Makes a lot of sense, Harv. I think,
I'm going to challenge you, Greg. I'm challenging you. Okay. I'm going to talk to you afterwards or tomorrow. We're going to talk tomorrow, and you're going to tell me what your earning was, and then you're going to tell me what your new intention, what you were thinking you might earn for this coming year. But then I'm going to challenge you to raise that dramatically and go to an extreme max of what is even feasible for you for the coming year. How's that?
Well, that sounds like fun. And I'm going to see you in about, 3 days?
Oh, I almost forgot. That's right.
Yeah.
Did you guys know that we have the honor of having Greg Habstritt at Millionaire School? And again, we got a couple of coups here. We had Keith Cunningham last week, and by the way, it's not like we chose them because they're at Millionaire School. It's their Millionaire School because we chose them. It's like this is old stuff already for us. That who's going to be there basically and what they're going to be teaching, and the best of the best. And so Greg's going to be there, and he's going to be teaching you. We're not going to tell him exactly what, but all I can tell you is he's a real estate mogul. He's a real simple kind of guy who just has some incredible knowledge and strategies that is very, very, very rare, and puts it together in such a simplified format that everybody can learn it and learn it quickly and learn it easily. And I'm learning from him every single time I talk to him. He's just so cut and dried and so confident. So this is what you do and this is what you don't do. And if you do what you don't want to be doing, this is what's going to happen. And a lot of I got to say this, a lot of the real estate gurus that are out there today, they're very, very strong in teaching. But you know what? Not that many of them actually do this stuff anymore. And that's all Greg does. I mean, I can't usually, whenever I get a hold of him, it's, hey, how's it going? Good. I can't hear you. Where are you? I'm on a construction site. I'm in a new apartment building here. I'm buying 2 condos right here. And, it's like, it's constant. So he just goes out and puts his other hat on and says, okay, here's what I did today. And here I'm going to show you what I did. And now you can do it too. And he takes people from this place of complete beginnership, if they have no experience whatsoever, to literal professional real estate investors like he is, full time if they want to be. In every facet, whether it's and this is what's good about it. You don't want to just know one arena. Would you say so, Greg? Would you say that's a critical thing, that if you're going to take an area, master it like you've mastered real estate, where you're saying, okay, if you ask, Greg is an expert at literally almost every real estate methodology going. I know you're not going to toot your own horn, but would you say that that's helped you find opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, no matter what the market is?
Yeah, I think the key to real estate, and I don't want to get too far off on a tangent for you, so I would say the key to real estate is understanding that you can't just take one strategy and apply it in every market. And that's one of the things we're going to get into quite deeply in Millionaire School, is understanding that real estate investing is like owning a toolbox. I mean, if all you own is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and not everything, if you try to hammer a screw in, it's not going to work very well. And that's what I see a lot of people doing, taking one strategy, going into the market, regardless of what's happening in it, and trying to apply this strategy that won't work. They lose money, they get all mad and say, you know what, this real estate stuff doesn't work. So I absolutely believe that what you need to do is understand the fundamentals of real estate that do drive every real estate market in the world.
Remember, I was asking you about the bubble, and you remember, I remember I said, don't you think there's a bubble there? And I remember you even laughed at me. You said, listen, you laughed and you said bubbles are for people who don't know anything about real estate or investing.
And it's true, Harv. I mean, it drives me crazy, in the national newspapers and everything all the time across North America. It's the quote, the real estate bubble. And you know what? There's no such thing as the real estate bubble. And that's one of the topics I'm going to cover in Millionaire School and give people all the tools to figure out, is the market I'm in a bubble? Because there are bubbles, but there's no such thing as the bubble.
Yeah, so, you don't have to be in that market, of course. You can be out of it, and you can find an arena where, not just location, but an arena or a strategy that is not even close to a bubble. It's just beginning to hit its peak. Well, listen, Greg, you've been totally awesome. I really appreciate you being on and taking your time. I know your time is extremely valuable. Like I said, every time I call you, you're in some real estate situation and going, I can't talk right now. I'm in the middle of a deal. I'll call you back in 2 hours. But so I really appreciate your taking the time. And usually this is the time, too, isn't it? It's in the evenings when I try to reach you. Go, no, call me in the morning or something like that when I have no appointments. So I look very forward to seeing you next week. That's going to be fantastic. Also, let me, for everybody right now, here's what I want you to do. I want you to review the lessons. Let's talk a little bit about some of the lessons we learned today. So write some of these down. One of them is that you absolutely have to be self-motivated. You got to have motivation. You cannot, because the motivation is your engine. You've got to have a reason for going out there and becoming rich, okay? You can't just say, well, I'd like to do okay. I got to have a reason for it. Number two, one of the things Greg said is that making money is easy. And that's a great attitude to have. And just like adding value is easy. See, money comes from value. So adding value to people's lives is easy. I would think most of you would agree with that. So let's say it. Adding values to people's lives is easy. Therefore, money making is easy. All right. Some of the rules that we talked about here, that the world will deliver to you exactly the amount of value you bring to it. And we talked a lot about whatever it takes, literally doing whatever it takes. Remember, Greg said, if someone you knew was being hung over a wall and you had an hour to get there, you would do it. As I said to you, if you had a year to become a millionaire or you'd be shot, you would do it, okay? What are you doing? What is your level, your intensity of working and getting it done? We also talked about accountability. Also asking yourself, what part did I play in this situation, whatever it is? And we talked about, again, thoughts, feelings, and actions being your energies that you're putting out to the universe and what you're getting back from those. So watch your thinking, observe your thoughts, observe your feelings, observe your actions. If you don't think that your thoughts, feelings, and actions are really, really positive, you don't have to wonder why you're getting negative results, okay? It's pretty simple. You're going to reflect back to you what you put out. The other thing that Greg talked about was focus, and we talked about making sure that you what was the line you used there about the pony? Greg, what was that pony line?
Well, it's about picking a pony, training it really well, and that pony will win some races for you.
Excellent, good. We also talked about spending your money and your time on education, and we talked about and to another level of where you're at right now. We also discussed doing what you love and the importance of that, and not using means to an end thinking. Yeah, I'm going to do this for a while until I get that. You know what happens? You waste 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and you're still doing it, aren't you? Again, the other thing, this was a huge one here. I love this one, Greg. We talked about this, which is when you have an obstacle, and when the X hits the fan, to make sure that you're saying, what's the worst thing that can happen? And get down to the bottom fear. And then what? And then what? And
That's
then
right.
what? And that will eventually lead you to what? To action. So what's the worst that can happen? Keep on bringing that back down to its root. And then what? And then what? And then what? And each of those is going to bring you to another action. Greg said that vision was one of his critical traits. And what he meant by that was he's good at seeing untapped opportunities in the market and identifying would you call it
either undervalued or untapped opportunities? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And you gotta develop. Would you say, Greg, you have to develop an eye for that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think it's something that is definitely a skill that can be learned.
You know, one of the things I teach in the Guerrilla Business program is this one. I'm going to give it to you for those who are still coming. Listen closely. Write this down. Look for problems. look for problems, because if you find a problem, you found an opportunity at the same time. Does that make sense, Greg?
Oh, I couldn't agree
more. Most people look for opportunities. That's stupid. How can you find go? Where's an opportunity? There's something that creates the opportunity, and what creates an opportunity is a problem.
Oh, absolutely.
Solving a problem is your job.
Harv, let me give you a really good example, quick example of that in real estate. The worst problem you can find in real estate is the most profitable deal you're going to do. Finding, for example, a landlord, a bad, poor, burnt-out amateur landlord, that is the best thing you can find, because it's somebody's nightmare problem to deal with. And if
I agree. Again, we don't want to say this because this is I'm not doing this personally, but did you know that there is the hottest real estate market in the world right now? Do you know where it is? New Orleans.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Absolutely. People are going in there and they're buying it for pennies, and as much, whatever they can get, because in 10 years, because after problem comes what? No problem. I'll say that again. After problem comes no problem. Again, this is something we teach at Real Business School. So I'm not telling you guys to do that, because I think that's I think if you're going to do that, go down there, but pay a fair price for something, for someone to be able to, don't screw anybody around on it. But hey, it just gives a good example of, sharp people who are hopefully not taking advantage of other people, but literally if someone's dropping it in your lap for pennies, it's because they got a problem. They said, listen, I'd rather take the pennies than nothing. You're the first person here. Take it gladly. My blessings. Those things that don't just happen in New Orleans, they happen all the time if you're looking for problems.
And you have to realize that in most cases, you're helping those people. You're not screwing them. You're not taking advantage of them. I mean, that's the important part of it, is that it takes two people to come to a deal.
Absolutely.
So you're not holding a gun to anybody's head. You're just offering a solution to their problem.
Thank you. Good. All right. So the other thing we want to do is a little bit of homework here, and that is I want you to review your notes now when we're done the call. Not tomorrow, not the next day, and not the week after that. Now. Review all your notes now. I want you to pick one key point to focus on for this week and one for next week, as it's a bye week on the calls, because we're all going to be at Millionaire School, I hope. And by the way, if you haven't registered, you might want to call the office and see if you can still get in. I don't even know if you can. I don't even know what the numbers are, but, it's packed as usual. So you're going to choose two key points to work on this time, one this week and one next week, even while you're at Millionaire School. And you're going to write each of them on a separate piece of paper, each on a separate piece of paper, and you're going to post it on your wall or your mirror. When you go to Millionaire School for next week, what you're going to do is you're going to put it on your mirror in your bathroom in your room and stuff like that, so you can work on it as you are and focus on it for the rest of the week. Next week, we have a bye week because we're at Millionaire School, as I said. And the week after, we are back with you. And we are back with a billionaire. I'll say it again. A billionaire with a capital B. And his name is... Oh, you thought I was going to tell you the name, didn't you? Nope, you're going to find out when you're on. But the billionaire part is accurate. Billions and billions, okay? So when you listen to this gentleman talk, it's coming from, and you know what? He sent me a list of his awards and whatever, his accomplishments. I had to change paper in my freaking printer, okay? I'm not kidding. I said, did you expect me to say all these things when I introduce you? That'll be an hour and a half, and unfortunately, the show's only an hour. So, no, this guy is the real deal, and some of you will have heard of him, I'm sure, and some of you won't. It depends on what circles you run in. But talk about in fact, just so you know, a little while ago he was. I'm not sure if he's up or down from there. The 25th richest person in America. Not bad, huh? Okay, something to learn there. So, anyways, I want to thank you all for your time. You guys are awesome as usual. I love you very, very much. Thank you all for your support.